So back on Christmas Eve, Amphibia creator Matt Brawley gave viewers a little treat by revealing the remaining episode titles for Season 2. Until last Thursday, this was all the new information we had about the remainder of Season 2. But now after several attempts from Disney TVA, after tweeting and then deleting the news, we finally have some synopses to go off of. So I figured I would give my predictions with the new info we have. You can check out my video I put out on Christmas Eve to see my predictions based off of the episode titles alone and see how they compare now. So first up, on March 6th, we have Night Drivers and Return to Wartwood. The synopses are Sprig and Polly stay up all night to drive the family home, and the planters make it to Wartwood and realize they forgot something important. So with Night Drivers, I feel this will pick up almost immediately where Day at the Aquarium left off. Since Hop Hop and Anne did most of the driving to Newtopia, they may hand off the reins to Sprig and Polly. And I think most of us have had our parents, an older sibling, or a family member let us pull the car in or out of the driveway, or drive around a parking lot before we got our driver's license. But man, giving the reins to them on a road trip, and at night no less? I don't know how many of you have done long road trips before, but driving on the highway at night is one of the most boring and subsequently most dangerous driving shifts to take since you're at risk of falling asleep behind the wheel. I wouldn't be surprised if this was part of the episode where Sprig and Polly try keeping each other awake as they head back to Wartwood. And pro tip, if you ever end up taking a night drive on a road trip, have someone with you to talk to you to keep you awake. I could see this episode being kind of like a Quarreler's Pass episode, where Sprig and Polly are arguing with each other and just being cranky and tired trying to drive through the night, but ultimately are able to get the family back home. Return to Wartwood will be interesting because it's going to be reintroducing us to everyone and everything that has happened in Wartwood while Anne and the planters have been away. In terms of what the thing that they forgot could be, maybe it's Anne's belongings. After all, she wasn't planning on heading back originally and just made a beeline for the planters when Marcy let her head back with them. I'm not sure what in Anne's belongings could be the focus. Her phone would likely be on her, so it's probably not that. But maybe it could be the photo of Anne, Sasha, and Marcy. If that was left in Newtopia, maybe King Andrias will try and use that against the girls in some way later on, but that's my best guess at the moment. Up next on March 13th, we have Ivy on the run. Fed up with her mother's strict rules, Ivy concocts a plan to run away, and after the rain, which has no synopsis.
I don't feel safe.
So we'll start with Ivy on the run first. I feel like this will be a fun breather episode before we start getting into some heavier stuff, especially if the following episode doesn't even have a synopsis. Ivy is definitely a fan favorite, so this should be a nice episode focused on her, and we may also get to see her and Sprig interact a bit more. I know we recently had the shut-in, but that episode wasn't a part of our current arc and featured a bunch of stories, so maybe we'll actually get to see Sprig and Ivy together for an episode this time around. Now, After the Rain has no synopsis at all, so this episode is going to be big. The only thing that I could really think of that would be this big to not have any sort of description would be the Calamity Box. It's still in Wartwood and Hop Hop has yet to come clean about hiding it, so maybe we'll finally get that here. After all, the following episode is the first temple, and that's linked to charging the gems in the Calamity Box, so it seems like we'll kinda need that going forward, so that's my guess for this episode. But speaking of the first temple, which is set to air March 20th and is also a 22-minute special. The synopsis for that is Marcy, Anne, and the planters travel to an ancient temple that could hold the key to getting Anne and Marcy home, but only if they can survive the temple's deadly challenges. This episode seems pretty straightforward for what it's going to be about, and this also does confirm that Marcy will go with Anne and the planters to the first temple. When the episode titles were first revealed back in December, I thought it could be possible that Marcy doesn't actually end up joining Anne and the planters if Andrias had an alternative plan, but that won't be the case. We can also assume that the gang will succeed in completing the temple since the other two temples have their own episodes. Not that that should be surprising, but man, would that be anticlimactic if they failed on the first temple? But I look forward to seeing Anne, Marcy, and the gang teaming up, similar to what we saw in Marcy at the Gates. And I'm also sure that this episode will have plenty of lore, which I'm excited for. Lastly, we have new Wartwood and Friend or Frobo set to air on March 27th. Intent on winning over Wartwood, Marcy makes a plan to improve the town, and desperate for fun, Polly breaks out on her own and finds an unlikely new friend in the process. With new Wartwood, this tells us that Marcy will come back with Anne and the planters. And based on the synopsis, it seems like the townsfolk aren't too keen on Marcy. Considering the last of Anne's human friend Sasha was with the Toads and tried to hold all the frogs captive and kill Hop Hop, they probably are a bit apprehensive of trusting another human outside of Anne. Similar to how Sprig acted in Marcy at the Gates, I feel like the people of Wartwood will be icy towards Marcy but eventually warm up to her, especially if she's going to try and make improvements to the town. I also like that we'll be seeing Marcy try and win over the people of Wartwood. We don't know what it was like for Marcy when she first arrived in Amphibia. We just know that she made improvements around Utopia and then won the people over. So much so that they dedicated a bridge to her. So actually getting to see Marcy prove herself this time around will be interesting. Lastly, Friender Frobo. We've had this guy tagging along since the second episode of Season 2. He's been on the Planters' trail ever since, and we'll finally have him cross paths with them. A while back, Disney TVA actually tweeted out a phone wallpaper that hinted at this episode with Polly and Frobo. I'm hoping that Frobo ends up sticking around for the long haul because I want to see what this guy can do. I mean, having him around for taking on the other two temples couldn't hurt anything, right? He's also connected to ancient Amphibia technology, so there's a lot of potential for a lore dump. But I like the idea of Polly being friends with or even learning how to control or give orders to this guy. Out of our main cast, Polly definitely seems like she'd be the one to want to be in charge of a powerful golem creature. But I'm super excited that Amphibia will be coming back soon. We're definitely getting into the heavy plot of the series, so I can't wait to see what's in store for Anne, Marcy, and the Planters. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day, and until next time, guys, take care.